2019 meeting of the Environment Committee to order. First up is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda's passed. Approval of the minutes from the September 10th, 2019 regular meeting of the Environment Committee. Do you have any changes? Motion
I'll take a motion. I'll
Move.
make the motion.
and second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have minutes. Next up is the consent agenda with a whole bunch of sewer plans for comprehensive plan updates. And I'm not going to read off all of these cities because you all know how to read. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Non-consent 2019-259, the 2019 Unified Budget Amendment, third quarter 2020 capital program. Authorization and approval, Ms. Clancy. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Janine Clancy. I'm the Assistant General Manager for Technical Services, and I also have Renee Heflin, Manager of Wastewater Plant Engineering, and Adam Gordon, Manager of Interceptor Engineering, that will present the capital program to you this evening. While Adam, Renee, and I are here to present the program, I also want to recognize that this is a ES-wide effort to develop the capital program, and I particularly would like to recognize staff in Kyle Colvin's group as well as in Ned Smith's group, who we worked together to get this program in place. So with that, over the next few slides, we'll be giving you an overview of the program, followed by presentations specifically to programs in our wastewater plants and our interceptor engineering area. So the first slide basically is a slide that you've seen many times. It is the customer level of service. MCS serves over 110 customer communities and is committed to providing excellent customer service. We strive to make decisions that are fiscally responsible and are balanced. We work to protect human health and the environment. Our capital program works to meet permit requirements and to work with our customers to ensure that capacity exists for growth and to coordinate our work in an efficient manner. So our customer level of service is really the foundation of which the capital program is based on. And here are our capital program principles. We can't undertake our projects without strong partnerships with our customer communities, and that not only goes for our interceptor system, but with our plant projects as well. We have 5 principles that we ask our staff to follow every day, no matter what the stage of the project is in. So first of all, to treat our customers and stakeholders respectfully, to leave the community with something better than they had prior to our project, to plan and coordinate our work with other public infrastructure work, to keep every promise made during planning, design, and construction, and to communicate in a manner that is consistent as possible with each community's protocol. So the capital program, and I know that some members of the committee that have come from local government, and the terms are a little bit different in local government than what we use at the council for the capital program. So first of all, I'd like to define a few terms. The capital program is a component of the council's unified budget plan. It is our spending plan for investments into our treatment plants and interceptors. The capital program is prepared and approved on an annual basis. The authorized capital program is a multi-year authorization to spend on a programmatic level where funding has been secured and the council has given the authority to proceed. It is the total of all past and present approvals from the council for a particular program. So the 2020 authorized capital program consists of the previous and approved authorized capital program, plus any new programs, plus adjustments to existing program, as well as the deletion of completed or closed out programs. So some of the adjustments to this year's program include an adjustment to our wastewater reuse program, the industrial pretreatment incentive program, and completion of programs in our Interceptor system, as well as a focus on new areas that we need to work on. Another term is the Capital Improvement Program, which is a 6-year capital investment plan where funding sources have been identified, but the council has not yet authorized us to proceed. And then the capital budget is the amount from the authorized capital program the council approves to be spent in the upcoming year. So once we move on, you'll see a little bit better how these terms are used. So the graph before you gives you a couple of pieces of information. First of all, it shows our historical spending from 2014 to 2018, and it shows that we anticipate spending about $116 million in 2019. Our proposed capital program for 2020 through 2025 ranges from $158 million to $180 million annually. A couple of thoughts and observations about this slide. Many of you know that we really ramped up our Interceptor renewal program to address some condition assessment concerns, and a number of those projects were constructed in 2015, so we had a really high level of Interceptor construction in 2015. And then after that, we experienced quite a bit of transition throughout environmental services, and particularly in technical services where we had some key retirements that took place. So retirements of seasoned key staff, along with an effort to improve the way that we deliver projects, caused a decrease of projects that were constructed. In 2018, we were at about $88 million. And we plan to be in the $130 to $160 million per year for the next several years, bumping up a little bit higher during the years that we are in construction of the fluidized bed incinerator. I do want to note that this is a plan, and so we anticipate generally that we spend about 80 to 85% of our planned expenditures. So the things that can cause us to not spend the entire $150 million could be things such as a project that is aligned up with a transportation project, and that transportation project either gets accelerated or it gets put behind. That might change our spending. We also may find a high priority due to an emergency that we find, or we might do a condition assessment and find that we need to advance the project faster than we originally anticipated. So the program does give us some flexibility, but it does also give you a really good plan for how we project our spending to be. So the next slide talks about our sources of funding and how we pay for our capital program. So first of all, the first identified funding source is the Public Facilities Authority, and you'll see there that we anticipate this year that we'll receive about a $50 million loan from the Public Facilities Authority. Now this is up from what it has been in the past. For years we received about $40 million. It was increased to $45 a few years ago, and now we anticipate, it hasn't been finalized, that we'll receive a $50 million loan from the PFA. This gives us an interest rate that's very favorable of about 1.5%. I just checked in with our finance staff. In 2018, it was actually 1.09. So it was a very favorable rate. Then the second source is council general obligation bonds that we receive, that we finance through our sources that are repaid through the municipal wastewater charge. And in 2018, our interest rate was at about 3.2%. So we anticipate about $100 million that we'll spend on general obligation bonds. And then finally, we have a source of funding source called PAYGO, which is money that is set aside from our operating budget that pays for our capital programs. And we anticipate about $11 million in PAYGO. So when we look at our capital program, we have 3 objectives. We work to preserve assets, meet capacity needs, and improve service quality. So once again, when you think about preserving assets and meeting capacity needs, that's pretty self-explanatory. But improving quality can mean things like responding to more stringent regulations, reusing wastewater, increasing system reliability, conserving or generating energy. So this year and for 2020, we anticipate preservation to be about 79% of our plan, expansion about 9% of our planned expenditures, and quality improvements would be about 13%. And then in 2020, you'll see that about 60% of our planned expenditures are in the Interceptor system and 40% are in plants. And you'll see that as we move along and toward the years that we're going to build the fourth incinerator, that will even out to 50-50 and might even adjust to 60% in plants and 40% in Interceptors. Again, one of the things that we benefit from through our programmatic approach is some flexibility to address issues as they are most important. So here's the summary of our authorized capital program for 2020, our requests. So our current authorizations are about $980 million. The adjustments to existing projects are about $112 million, and this is closed out projects or reduced projects to reflect actual cost. That we have new projects that we've identified, about $211 million. So that's our solids processing facility at the Metro plant, Hastings, the plant at Hastings, Rogers, Northeast area system improvements in our Interceptor system, Northwest area system improvements, as well as renewal of 1MS100, which is the large interceptor system between Minneapolis and St. Paul that's oftentimes referred to as the Joint Interceptor. And so our completed projects that were moved out of the 6-year ACP is a deduct of $99 million. So this equates to a total 2020 authorized capital program request of about $980 million. So in summary, the final proposed 2020 through 2025 capital program totals about $1.4 billion, of which $980 million is in the authorized capital program and $408 million is in the capital improvement program. So the proposed 2019 capital budget is $158 million, all of which will be incorporated into the council's unified capital budget that you'll consider later on as part of a full council. So at this point, and then I'll come back and wrap up, I'd like to have Renee start off with some major plant projects.
Thank you, Janine. Good afternoon, council members and members of the Environment Committee, Madam Chair. The 6-year capital improvement program for the wastewater treatment plants includes the continuation of asset renewal at the Metro plant, planning for the new Crow River plant, and solids improvements for Empire and Blue Lake. I'm going to present some of the individual projects that will come out of plant engineering in the next couple of years. We have a project at the Metro plant to build a new services building and modify the existing analytical laboratory building. The project allows us to discontinue use of Metro 94 rental space and to discontinue use of on-site temporary trailers. Some of those locations are shown here. Staff and the R&D trailers will be relocated to the analytical laboratory building. Construction field office and Metro 94 staff will be relocated to the new services building. Assembling work groups by function improves efficiency and effectiveness. The project will also include conference space in the services building to accommodate industrial and community customers. We plan to initiate construction of this project in 2020 using design, build, delivery. This year will be before the council to approve an engineering contract for owner's agent services, and those services will assist staff with preliminary design and construction. The Metro plant is the largest wastewater treatment plant in our system. The current capital improvement program for the Metro plant alone is a little over 30% of the total program for plants and interceptors, We have 9 plants. The Metro plant treats 70% of the total wastewater system wastewater flow, and 75% of the wastewater solids. Metro treats solids from its service area, plus solids from Hastings, Eagles Point, St. Croix Valley, and East Bethel. The Metro plant treats wastewater solids in 3 incinerators that are nearing 20 years old and need renewal. Renewal work will require that each of the 3 incinerators be taken down for about a year. Additional solids treatment capacity is needed to complete the renewal work and to also serve regional growth through the year 2050. As recommended in the council-approved facility plan, we will construct a 4th incinerator first in 2021, and then we will follow with the second project in 2024 to renew the existing 3. We will use design build for the 4th incinerator, and we will use the same owner's agent as for the Services and Analytical Laboratory Buildings project. We acquired the Rogers wastewater treatment facility in July. We plan to use existing capacity until a new Crow River wastewater treatment plant is constructed. When the Crow River wastewater treatment plant is brought online in 2030, it will free up Interceptor capacity to serve growth in the northwest Hennepin County and the urban core. We will have a small construction project as shown here next year to modify the Rogers facility. The improvements project will provide separate restroom facilities, office space, permanent backup power generator, security, and other miscellaneous modifications needed for operation by MCES. We will advertise a construction project for the construction contract for this project later this year or early next year. After the Crow River wastewater treatment plant is brought online, we will decommission the Rogers facility. We have this is a solids improvements at the Empire wastewater treatment plant. This plant is located in Empire Township near Farmington. Empire has digesters that treat wastewater solids to a biosolids product suitable for land application. Biosolids are stored on 2 asphalt pads shown here in the back of this photo. And the biosolids are applied to a farm field either in the spring before sowing or in the fall after harvest. There are 2 phases currently under design. We will open bids for phase 1 on October 3rd. Phase 1 will increase pad storage capacity by adding a cover to one of the biosolids pads and by improving pad drainage. The estimated construction cost for phase 1 is $9 million, and the bid results will be presented to the council prior to award of the construction contract later this year. Phase 2 includes digester modification and the addition of a new combined heat power engine that converts digester gas to electricity. Construction of phase 2 will begin after completion of phase 1 in 2021. This year, we will complete some planning activities that will help us determine the schedule for building the new Hastings wastewater treatment plant. Replacement of the existing plant, which is located near downtown Hastings, is included in the 2040 Water Resources Policy Plan. The existing plant was originally constructed in 1952, and it has undergone 2 major expansions, 1967 and 1981. We know the plant is in need of renewal, and we will complete a total plant condition and performance assessment to determine renewal and replacement options. And then we'll make a recommendation based on a financial analysis. New Hastings plant has already been acquired. It was purchased in 2005 following an extensive site selection process. The new site is 221 acres and it's located about 2 miles, shown here. It's along Highway 54. It's about 2 miles from the existing plant. Finally, another project I wanted to introduce is we are designing a wastewater reuse system for the Metro plant to take the place of some of the groundwater withdrawal. The Metro plant has 3 service water pumps. Just one is shown here that withdraw water from the bedrock aquifer for various in-plant industrial uses. These include pump seal water, wash water, and also equipment cooling water. We can reduce the groundwater withdrawal by shifting these uses to wastewater reuse. The project will add treatment to make the wastewater suitable for limited human contact. Now, we'll still have to withdraw some of the groundwater to protect plant infrastructure from uplift, but switching some of those industrial uses will help us to reduce our withdrawal, we anticipate, by about half. Next, I'll turn it over to Adam, who will talk about the Interceptor projects.
Thank you, Renee. Members of Environmental Committee, Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce just a short list of projects included in the Interceptor system that we've identified across the metropolitan area. Many of these projects reflect our continued emphasis toward asset renewal. Just to list a few areas, we have identified in our 6-year capital program $124 million of projects in the Minneapolis system, $74 million in the St. Paul system, $22 million for the St. Bonifacius lift station and Forcemain rehabilitation project. Our L32 project is $25 million, and overall lift station rehabilitation improvements $18 million. So there's a total of $518 million within our 6-year capital program. A new project or a new family has been identified in the capital improvement plan concerning the Northwest area interceptor improvements. Planning is needed to define capacity constraints, and condition issues throughout this area. Determine ultimate service area. Example is the Elm Creek Interceptor and Crow River treatment sheds. We need to screen alternatives for potential river crossings and lift station locations, and prioritize future projects and develop an implementation schedule and costs. Within this area, and I've presented previously a business item related to the L32 lift station, which we need to reconstruct. The existing lift station is nearly 50 years old, and it reached its useful life, and the existing station lacks adequate storage for allowing for response time during outages, and there's not enough room on the existing site to maintain existing service and construct a new lift station. So a property was purchased by MCS several years ago on the east side of the river. The land is currently occupied, is rented out to Girl Scout camp, Camp Luxley, and there's been a lot of coordination between the stakeholders, including the city of Fridley, Friends of the Mississippi, and the surrounding community. The ACP request for the full $25 million covers the planning, design, and construction costs for the project. We're planning, the planning commenced in 2019 with a design start in 2020 and construction to follow during 2022 through 2025. We defined in the 2019 ACP a project that was called the Interceptor 1MN340 Rehabilitation Program under project number 8092. The 2020 ACP proposes a new name, the Minneapolis Interceptor Improvements Phase 2, that will include planning and facility plan preparation and prioritization for several projects within the city of Minneapolis, including 1MN 340. But we have a number of needs, including several pipe locations. And actually, these pictures in this slide show that during the 1980s, when we had sewer separation projects in the metropolitan area, there was difficulty in placing sanitary pipe, new sanitary pipe, and so the solution at that time was to actually place a corrugated metal pipe in the bottom of the existing storm sewers. This worked well for a while. However, the CMP has corroded. We're currently fixing a lot of those pipe locations where the pipe has fallen apart through maintenance contracts, but overall there needs to be a more permanent solution. So we're looking at these pipe locations. There's they affect interceptors 1MN302 and 1MN341. We're also looking at capacity and hydraulic issues along 1MN340. We're also planning additional odor control and I mitigation needs throughout the city. The Hopkins system, East Isles Forcemain replacement, is the very last phase of a project which started well over 10 years ago with the facility planning. The 5 miles of Forcemain between the city of Hopkins and the city of Minneapolis. The remainder is 1,900 feet of 30-inch Forcemain, and we plan on replacing that with twin 18-inch Forcemains. The area of replacement is right in East Isles, which is on the east side of the map, as shown by the orange line work and keynote. And the area also includes a drop, which is very badly corroded, where the flow drops into an existing interceptor 1MN330. So there's approximately $5.3 million worth of work, and we're going, we have been in design phase, preliminary design phase on that project, and we'll continue in design phase through 2019 with construction starting in 2020. The Interceptors 1SP200 and 1SP201 Battle Creek Rehabilitation. This interceptor services Woodbury parts of Lake Elmo and Cottage Grove. The interceptors pass through Battle Creek Park, and the project includes about 5,000 feet of lining of 30 and 33-inch concrete pipe that was constructed in 1959. This also includes improvements to the Battle Creek Siphon Head House, which is actually located right in Battle Creek Park, with a mechanical grinder and structural improvements. And as you can see here in the pictures, this is one of the better set of pictures I've seen of badly corroded pipe. And so we have condition 5 pipe, and so this project is needed to prevent a future problem. The L24 lift station and Forcemain replacement project. I was in previously for a business item for land acquisition needs for this project, the same as part of the St. Bonifacius system. And this project includes approximately 3 miles of new Forcemain and rehabilitation of the existing L24 lift station due to the age of the system and also capacity constraints due to growth. And we're looking at construction to begin in 2020, and it's approximately $25 million worth of work. Just to note, this project had a portion of the Forcemain previously replaced underneath a different project underneath Lotus Drive.
Okay, so Madam Chair, members of the council, so before you is the schedule. So in August 8th, the divisions had a division level budget presentation. In August 22nd, there was an adoption of the preliminary unified operating budget and levies. And then tonight, of course, we're presenting the MCS capital program and budget. On October 9th, there will be a division level capital program presentation, followed by an adoption of public comments on the draft budgets for October 24th, with anticipation that on December 11th, the entire council would adopt the final 2020 budget and levies. So this is just a piece of the process. This presentation is more in depth on environmental service issues than what you'll see as you move through the process. So that is why we wanted to provide you with some examples of some of the programs and projects that we're planning to undertake. So there is no action before the council this evening other than to respond, or the committee other than to respond to questions.
Thank you. Are there questions? Anybody have a question?
We have to ask a question?
I've been around here so long that some of these projects I'm thinking, yay, it's finally going to be done. Like the one going through Minneapolis. I've seen lots of chunks of that go by over the years. But if there are no questions, then what are we?
Madam Chair, this is a business item on the
Yep.
agenda.
And so we need to vote on. Wait a second, where'd my
So
agenda?
it is my understanding that this is presented as information that the action is taken as part of the unified business item. And Kyle, I'll look.
Then,
That's
so we
correct, Ned?
vote on it, and then it goes forward to the council.
Okay.
Okay. So we would need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have 2019 Stormwater Grants Funding Recommendations. Mr. Mulcahy.
Madam Chair, committee members, I'm here to present business item 2019-267, 2019 Stormwater Grant Funding Recommendations. You may remember I was here in mid-May to get approval for the process for the 2019 Stormwater Grants. You did approve that, and so did the full council. Since then, well, just to refresh on what the program was, there was $500,000 available for shovel-ready redevelopment projects to help fund stormwater management for those projects. Maximum grant amount was $100,000 with a minimum grant of $10,000. It was open to metro area cities, counties, townships, and watershed management organizations, as well as soil and water conservation districts. And we would like projects to be completed by December 31st, 2022, unless there are extenuating circumstances. We announced the availability of funds at the end of May with applications due on July 15th. We received 15 applications requesting a little over $1 million. Again, our total funding available was $500,000. Here is a list of the applications we received. Again, They requested a total of $1,063,000. The applications were reviewed and scored based on criteria that were attached to the stormwater grant application packet. All the applicants knew what the criteria were and how we would assign points for the various applications. They were reviewed by a panel of 6. There was one person from Environmental Services Tech Services, one from Met Council Water Supply, 2 from Community Development, one external member from the Minnesota chapter of the American Public Works Association who works for Alliant Engineering Incorporated. He was recommended by the chair of the Minnesota chapter of the American Public Works Organization, and he was not associated with any of the applications that were submitted. And I ranked him 2 myself as a part of the Water Resources for Environmental Quality Assurance. Here are the final scores for each of the applications as the way in the order they were received. And the next slide is the application sorted by the total points they received, highest to lowest. All of these projects were good projects. Some just scored higher than others based on the criteria. Again, we got about a request for about twice as much money as we had available. So here are the recommendations we've settled on. The top 3 projects were pretty much unanimously scored as the highest ranking projects by all the reviewers. The next 2, the 4th and 5th project, there's really only 1 point difference between the scores for those projects. After that, it drops by about 10 points. And after that, it drops by another 6 points. In order to spread the funds around a little more, we recommended partial funding for those applications below the top 3. We recommended more for the 4th and 5th because they were only 1 point apart. We had recommended $75,000 for each. They each requested $100,000, the maximum amount. The 6th project, we recommended $50,000 for because it was 10 points lower than the next closest one. And the one final 7th project, we recommended $25,000 for. So at this time, I would like to ask you to authorize the regional administrator to award and execute the grants recommended in the attachment of the business item for a total amount of $500,000. And I will attempt to answer any questions you may have about any of the projects or why we decided to recommend them.
Thank you. Questions?
I have a question. Madam Chair, Joe, if, let's do a hypothetical here. Let's say that either Hugo or Brooklyn Center looks at the situation and decides that they can't afford to either allocate or find the additional dollars it would take. Do we come back then and revisit where that money might go, or is that just carried over?
We said in the business item that we would, if that was the case, we would redistribute those funds among either the higher ranking projects or closely lower ranking projects.
Good, thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Stern.
All right, thank you, Chair. I just was wondering, like, again, hypothetical question here, but some of the projects weren't asking for the maximum 100,000, and you could leverage 3 or 4 for 100,000, so you'd have more quantity or number of projects versus 6 or so. I didn't know if that was ever a consideration or strictly went on points and where the dollars would run out.
It was strictly on a points basis, basically because they had the criteria to start out with and they knew how they were going to be scored. When an opportunity comes like this, a lot of cities will send in whatever they have in the pipeline, just hoping to get funding. And if we had more funds, again, none of the projects were bad. It was just based on the availability of funds and how they scored.
Mr. Sterner.
All right, and just on the scoring, you kind of went over a little bit of it, but is it more like scoring gymnastics or is it more like scoring a soccer game where it goes in
I believe that's called objective versus
Objective or-
subjective.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. In your mathematician, that's the way I'll find it.
Madam Chair, committee member, I would say it was more like a gymnastics scoring. If there's any particular project, the first project, the Village Green Stormwater and Community Garden improvements in Fridley, that was to enhance an undersized storage infiltration basin. That was basically, it's a 196 unit, section 42 affordable housing apartment building. But that basin treats stormwater from an 80-acre subwatershed that all goes to that point. The improvements would basically treat an additional 168 acre-feet of water per year, reduce phosphorus discharge into Rice Creek by 49.5 pounds per year, and total solids discharged by 16,400 pounds per year. The housing, 40% of the residents are people of color and 35% are disabled. They also plan to put in a walking path, a community garden area, and a play area, signage. Based on our criteria, this satisfied several of the council's goals unrelated to stormwater. So basically, that's how they were scored and how they shook out, is if they met those criteria and if a subjective judgment by the reviewer that it met those and it met those better than the other applications.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Then we would be in need of a motion.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is information, water resources, stream sampling, and biomonitoring work. Ms. Champion?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, committee members, for having me this evening. My name is Cassie Champion, and I coordinate the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services Stream Monitoring Program. And I met some of you at our Battle Creek Monitoring Station tour back in July. What I really like to do when I have a chance is to get people as close to flowing water as I can. So sorry that I couldn't bring you out to a stream tonight, but I sincerely hope that if you're interested, you'll ask me and we can arrange a tour of one of our monitoring locations that's particularly interesting to you. But I hope overall that this presentation makes you feel like you've at least visited one of our really lovely regional streams. Before I go any further, I need to introduce a couple of terms that are real important when talking about water pollution. There's two kinds of water pollution: point source pollution and non-point source pollution. When I'm talking to younger kids, I tell them that point source pollution comes from something that you can point at. So, for example, on our nice diagram here, you can see a wastewater treatment plant near the bottom. That wastewater treatment is something that I can point at. All that pollution is coming from that one place. That's point source pollution. Everything else we describe as non-point source pollution. So that's pollution that's coming from city streets, suburban development, construction sites, agricultural fields. That's the kind of diffuse pollution is another way of describing that. So now that we've got those two terms pretty well established, I can go forward and describe how our stream monitoring program was designed to describe non-point source pollution dynamics in the region.
So I have to stop you for just a second, though. Looking at your little, it's a nice picture, except that when our wastewater treatment plants discharge into rivers, they don't send brown stuff.
They do not. See an aerial photo, Madam Vice Chair, of our wastewater treatment plant discharging into a river. It is lovely, clear water discharging into murky brown water. That's a great observation. Thank you.
A map from Iowa.
So I'm going to talk about the history of the purpose of our stream monitoring program. I'm going to give you a few historical highlights, and then I'm going to talk through the program element by element to explain how the elements of the program work together to actually describe stream water quality. The purpose of our monitoring program is to support regulatory strategies by quantifying regional non-point source pollution, to measure regional stream health, to provide actionable information to our partners for local water management, and to partner with local public sector water resource practitioners to monitor and assess regionally significant streams. In 1988, Arnie Carlson was governor, and he set a goal of a 40% phosphorus pollution reduction in the Minnesota River Basin. And that in response, Environmental Services developed a network of non-point source pollution monitoring stations in the lower Minnesota River. The data from this program was eventually used to inform some of the big wastewater treatment upgrades at Metro Plant in the mid-90s. Between 1996 and 1999, Environmental Services was directed to develop target pollutant loads for the streams in the Twin Cities. And as part of that effort, the stream monitoring program was expanded to 21 monitoring stations throughout the metro area. So where the original monitoring program was entirely within the Minnesota River Basin, now our monitoring station really is region-wide. And that monitoring expansion included developing monitoring stations with local partners. And now we are at 2019, so we are celebrating 30 years of this monitoring program. These automated monitoring stations that we developed were the first of any automated non-point source pollution monitoring stations in the region. And I will be presenting at the Minnesota Water Resources Conference next month to give a longer description of our 30-year program history, changes that we've made, and future plans. I've got a list here of our monitoring partners. So I said when the program was expanded in the mid-90s, each one of those new monitoring stations was developed in cooperation with a local partner. So I've got a map here, and I'll kind of I won't describe everybody, but I'll give you a brief tour of some of our monitoring partners. So in our urban core streams, our Fish Creek, Battle Creek, and Beltline Interceptor, our monitoring partner there is Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. And at the tour in July, we met Eric Cordy from the Watershed District, and he talked about the long partnership between Environmental Services and the Watershed District in terms of data collection and being able to support the development of their internal monitoring program. If we kind of zoom a little bit to the North Metro, we have a monitoring partnership with Anoka Conservation District. They help us monitor the Rum River. And then if we scoot down one western site here is Riley Creek. Our monitoring partner there is the City of Eden Prairie. They're the grantee for that monitoring location. And then just to kind of complete our circle tour here, the Vermilion River and Cannon River. Our monitoring partner for those two locations is the Dakota County Soil and Water Conservation District. This slide also gives you an idea of what some of our monitoring stations actually look like. Some of them really are quite high profile. This station here is the Vermilion River Monitoring Station. It's in Hastings, and it is in the Vermilion Falls Park, which is quite high profile. There's a lovely waterfall, a nice viewing gazebo, and a regional bike trail that goes right past it. So this is something that if we are working at this station, someone will stop and ask us what we're doing there. This station is Carver Creek, located near Carver, Minnesota. And then this, my nice wintry picture, is our monitoring station in Bloomington on 9 Mile Creek. So as you can see, most of our stations sort of look like just a curious little shed, but now that you know, if you happen to be, 9 Mile Creek is another real high profile walking and cross-country skiing trail. If you happen to go past, now you know what you're looking at. Our monitoring program is set up to answer some really basic questions about water quality, and we kind of get at those one element at a time. So we monitor hydrology in order to answer the question, how much water is flowing in this stream? We monitor chemistry to answer the question, how clean or dirty is the water in the stream? And we monitor the ecology of the stream to answer the question, who lives here? all of these elements can be combined together over time to look for a trend and understand whether or not the water quality is improving or whether it is declining. Now I'm going to take these elements one at a time and show you some of the equipment that we use and give you a little bit of a description about how each element informs the other types of monitoring. So here's some pictures of our hydrology monitoring. This larger picture is Credit River near Savage, Minnesota. All of our streams are wadable at some point during the year, not necessarily all the time, but when we're doing a wading measurement, you can see the kind of equipment that we use, a handheld device, just to answer the question, how much water is actually flowing past us right now. This lower picture is the Vermilion River in Hastings, tends to be a higher flow, and in this case, not safe for wading, and so we've got this super cool boat that answers the same question, how much water is flowing here? And at all of these locations, we also have automated equipment that is collecting information for us. So we make these measurements on a periodic schedule. Our automated equipment is taking a measurement every 15 minutes, telling us how much water is flowing past the stream. This data is uploaded hourly to our EIMS website and it's publicly available. Here's some photos of water chemistry monitoring. So water chemistry is probably what people think of most typically when they think about water quality monitoring, which is filling up a bottle with water and handing it to a laboratory and asking them to measure things like solids, nutrients, bacteria, chlorides. And you can see here in this upper picture, this is again the Vermilion River at Hastings, and in this case, it's not safe for just wading in and filling the bottle. So I'm using a reach pole to grab for the water. And over here, this is a little more interesting. So here, Scott is next to one of our auto samplers. So the auto samplers, what they do is when we hit a certain trigger of water level in the stream, is they'll pump a sample for us, stick it in the fridge until we're ready to come get it. And the reason that's important is that it's pretty common for a storm to happen in the middle of the night on a weekend. And we're not, and sometimes the duration of that event in the stream is so short that we couldn't even get there even if we were awake and trying to get there. So these auto samplers allow us to capture non-point source pollution events in a way that you simply can't do by manual sampling. And I think this lower sample picture here is a nice example of a really dirty storm sample.
That's some nasty looking water.
It is, yes. That is Minnesota River Basin water, which tends to be the dirtiest. And then just one more highlight here is these are our sample lines in a stream. So that's what it looks like. If you're near the stream bank and you know what you're looking for, you can see the lines in the water. The pump is inside one of those monitoring shelters that I showed you, and the water is coming in through the sample lines into the refrigerator, waiting for us to come and get it when it's much safer and more convenient. Then the third element that I want to talk about is ecology monitoring. So for all of our streams, we sample macroinvertebrates and we do a habitat assessment. And the reason that we sample macroinvertebrates, which are the kind of bugs that live in the water, they are living there for either their whole life. Some of them have their entire life cycle aquatic. And some of them, they are, for example, a dragonfly is aquatic as a larva, but then emerges as an adult terrestrial bug. No matter what, the length of time that these bugs are exposed to the stream conditions informs us a lot about the water quality over time. So, for example, when we collect any one of those bottles of water that you saw in the pictures, that only tells us what the water was like at the moment that we collected that bottle of water. Bugs have a known ability to tolerate pollution. So when you collect an entire community of organisms and identify them, then you can know if I have a community of organisms that's primarily clean water bugs, that's really good evidence that this is a clean stream. Conversely, if I've got a community of organisms that's mostly known to be very tolerant of pollution, that's good evidence that this is a pretty stressed out system. So macroinvertebrate monitoring is really important because it gives us very concrete information on the health of the stream. It's also really important because it's very engaging. So we had some live bugs at our Battle Creek tour in July, and I bring live bugs with me whenever I can. Sorry, it didn't work out for not super appropriate for the council chambers, but they tend to really draw people in, kids or adults, and it tends to be a great way to introduce the topic of water quality or water resources. Even when people think they're creepy, they still like want to get a good look. And so what you didn't see after the Battle Creek tour was over and you got on your bus and went to an Interceptor site, we had an entire preschool classroom. The Free Forest School happened to be on site at Battle Creek Regional Park, and they had come up to see what we're doing. And we said, okay, when the grown-ups are gone, bring your kids on over and we'll talk them through what we've got. And so we had a whole classroom full of really fascinated preschoolers come and look at our macroinvertebrate samples. So I think it's a way to make stream monitoring a lot more practical and a lot more engaging when you're trying to talk to a more general audience. So I hope I've given you a good overview of our stream monitoring program. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
I have a question before I'm going to offer it up to you guys. So you said that the whole stream monitoring thing started in 1988 because Governor Carlson wanted to reduce phosphorus in the Minnesota River.
Mm-hmm.
What is the phosphorus now compared to what it was in 1988?
I can go back. Thank you for that question, Madam Vice Chair. And I'll go back to the this trends chart is from our stream trend monitoring or stream trend assessment report. And you can see that in most, and this happens to be total phosphorus, so I'm glad you asked about that one. You can see that in most of our Minnesota River basins, they're blue. So here we've got kind of maybe through to here or so is Minnesota River, anything to the west. And you can see that in almost every case, our contributing tributaries are showing improving water quality. And we just have a couple of cases where the total phosphorus would be increasing or the water quality declining.
Okay. Questions? Councilmember
All
Stern?
right, I had two, but I'll do a follow-up close to the chair's question. So there's three areas on there that are more declining. They're not just average declining. Can you tell me what's going on with those areas and what kind of actions are done to try to, get them in the positive?
It's hard to make a really specific statement like that with this general trend overview, but we do have really nice fact sheet and chapter reports on our EIMS website. So if you are curious to know a more specific and more details about the Carver Creek watershed over the trend analysis period, I think I'll just refer you to that instead of trying to come up with something off the top of my head.
Okay, but I'll look at that then. All right, then just getting back to the point source comment you meant. So on the example, you showed like an animal feedlot as not being a point source. And I'm just wondering, it seemed like it'd be pretty definite that was
Sure.
a place to go. So I don't know if that's
Yeah.
Yes,
In
or
this
why?
case, when I'm talking about point sources, I'm talking about point sources that are regulated.
Okay.
Agriculture tends to not be.
So with that metals facility that was in North Minneapolis area that just recently got closed, would that would have been considered a
That would
point
have been a
source?
point source.
Okay.
Any water discharge, yeah, would have been a point source.
That one. Okay, thank you. All right.
Any other questions? Then thank you very much for your presentation. And I would like to come see the bugs sometime.
Yeah.
Great. I'll select some for you.
Thank you. And so that brings us to the general manager's report.
Very briefly, you should have gotten a copy of our recently published latest performance report. I want to let you know we've intentionally kept it brief so it could hopefully be more of a resource for you for quick information. So it has basic information about who we are, but also what we're focusing on in terms of some of our strategic goal areas. So hopefully you'll find this helpful, but we're interested in your feedback. So you've got a different lens that you look at than we do, as this is our business. So we're looking for your feedback on that.
Okay.
The other piece that I wanted to mention is the Children's Water Festival is tomorrow. So I think that came up at a previous meeting. If you're interested, it's at the State Fairgrounds. We have, I think, 4 different sites that we have staff that'll be helping with for that event.
What time would that be at?
It starts at 10.
Okay.
And there's a website, so if you're interested in more information, we'll send you a link and you can get parking information and things like that from that.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Excellent.
Hmm?
Excellent.
Well, seeing that there is no further business before us, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.